All right. I can't possibly tell you how excited I am for this interview because this is the first time I've ever been able to interview Dr. David Brust live on something like this. It's amazing. And for those of you who don't already know who he is, Dr. Brust is one of the, if not the top sugar glider, sugar bear veterinarian in the world. He's the president of the Association of Sugar Glider Veterinarians. He's also the author of pretty much every book and article that's been written in the last few years from a veterinary standpoint on how to care for these little guys. And pretty much, again, like everything that has been written about how to take care of sugar bear sugar gliders from a veterinary standpoint in all areas of their well-being has been authored or co-authored in one way or another by this gentleman. You know, and to kind of try to put this in perspective for you as to why I'm so excited about this interview is, you know, if we had to kind of give you an analogy here, it would be that if we were doing an interview about computers or something like that, this would be the equivalent of getting like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or somebody on to do an interview like this. So this is quite an honor, and I want to make sure that we're very respectful of Dr. Brust's time. So, Dr. Brust, would you say hi to everybody, please?
Good evening, everybody.
All right. Now, just in full disclosure here, Dr. Brust, I know one of your conditions of doing this interview even was that I would not edit it in any way, shape, or form, and that it would be broadcast in its entirety. And you know, I understand that a doctor of your stature, you have to be very concerned about people taking your words out of context or misquoting you and things like that. So I totally respect that, and I really hope we can get you to come back and do a whole lot of more interviews and things like that, based on whatever the viewers' questions are after listening to this one. And so, but bottom line is, if I sneeze or cough or a Dr. Brust does the same thing, guys, it's just going to stay in the interview because that's the way this is. We just want you to get, you know, the full information. So, Dr. Brust, I know your time is valuable. I know, you know, diet is one of the most, if you know, not the most controversial topic out there on these animals. And you know, so hopefully I can get you to come back and we can drill into some more very specific topics about that. But for now, if possible, I'd really like to kind of just keep it general with regards to nutrition and diet for these animals, because the vast majority of people watching this interview, in many cases, you know, they just got their sugar bears, and you know, they just want to make sure they're doing the right thing. They want to make sure the animal's got a great diet that keeps them healthy and happy, and that they can sleep at night, you know, going to bed at night, knowing that they're doing the right thing for their animals. It's that simple. You know, having been in this industry for as long as I have, you know, I know you can go on 20 different websites and see 20 different things, and people bashing each other and trashing this and that diet and all this kind of stuff, and people don't know what to believe, plain and simple. So, you know, what I'm hoping we can do in this interview is that you, as a veterinarian, with your stature and with all the vets all over the world that listen to you when it comes on how to care for these animals, if you could tell us, you know, what's a good diet, you know, what's a bad diet, or is there a bad diet for these animals? What's okay for these animals? What's not? You know, and if you could just kind of cut through all that nonsense out there and give people a solid set of tracks just to run on and a simple plan that they can use just to make sure that their animals are completely healthy. That would be great. So, Dr. Brust, I hope you don't mind, but because I know your time is valuable, I took the liberty of writing some notes down to make sure that I can get the questions asked that I need to. And so, with that in mind, let's kind of get started, sir. If you could, you tell me, you know, what is the Association of Sugar Glider Veterinarians, and you know, why did you start it?
Well, I've been practicing exotic medicine for about 30 years now, and I get quite a few different types of patients come in, and a few years ago I was presented with a sugar glider, which I honestly had never seen before, and I didn't know very much about it. So I started researching the veterinary world for information and found most of the information was pretty old. So the next step was I do what most people do, is I went out on the internet, and boy, that was an eye-opener. A lot of that information was pretty bad, to say the least, that it was just so out of whack. So that's kind of, so I sat down and started doing some research on my own and trying to put everything together, and I would get calls from people and stuff about it, or I was calling them and asking them about it and trying to put all this information in one place. And when I was working on them, one of my staff people said, well, who is this for? And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, is this for owners or for vets? And I went, whoa, what a cool idea. So that's kind of the association was born. We tried to put as much information together in one place so the veterinarians could find it quickly, but also a place for owners to go to get an unbiased information on all different topics. So if you go to the website, there's a section for owners and there's a section for veterinarians.
Wow, excellent, sir. And how big is the association now?
Quite surprising. We have over 1,700 veterinarians in 25 different countries. And a lot of these countries, I didn't even know they had sugar gliders.
Wow. So, I mean, I heard that right. 1,700 veterinarians in over 20 countries.
Yes, so that's correct.
Wow. Sir, in all seriousness, as a person who genuinely loves these animals, my hat's off to you, because the good that you are doing out there for these animals worldwide is providing a lot of value to families who care about these animals. And sir, I just want to say thank you. Let me dive into some other questions here. Let's just start off with something very basic. So based on your 30 years of practice and the thousands of vets that you work with worldwide, are there any one or two obvious things that people tend to do wrong when they're caring for their sugar bears?
Well, the sugar bears, sugar gliders are pretty much like any exotic. The problems, pretty much, the two most important things are, one, nutrition, their diet, what they eat, and the husbandry, meaning the cage, the environment that they're kept in. So pretty much the problems I see all come back down to nutrition. Far and away, that's the majority. Comes down to bad nutrition.
Okay, so let me ask you, in your professional opinion, what's your definition of bad or improper nutrition for a sugar bear?
A diet that is too low in calcium, which is called hypocalcemia, or way too many calories, which leads to being obese or being fat.
Okay. All right, so based on your own experience, are there any one or two big mistakes nutritionally that people tend to make when it comes to feeding sugar bears?
Sure. My philosophy is KISS. Keep it simple. The more complicated you make a diet, the more chances are of having problems with it. The original diet for gliders was called Leadbetter's. Had multiple different ingredients, protein powders, insects, honey, just all kinds of different things, which in theory is great. It's a complete diet. The gliders would eat it, but in practicality, it's just not feasible. It's too complicated of a diet for people to do consistently, and that's the problem. People start off with 100%, and they run out of one thing or another thing, and pretty soon they've got 70, 80% of the ingredients, and that's what the gliders are getting.
Gotcha. So just to be clear, like with Leadbetters and other types of diets, and I'm familiar with all the homemade diets, what's your personal opinion or professional opinion as a veterinarian, one who works with others all around the world, what's your opinion of homemade diets like that? I mean, are they okay? Or is there anything wrong with them?
Usually, when I have gliders come in that are obese or having different medical problems, they're on a homemade diet. I personally am a big proponent on pellets, which has been pretty controversial for a long time, but most people are realizing the benefits of a consistent diet. Yeah, it's like I said, I'm not a big fan of the homemade diets. There's just I see too many problems. That's what I'm basing my opinion on, is I see too many problems with the gliders that are on homemade diets.
All right. Okay. So let me ask you this. Let's say somebody comes into your clinic and says, oh, pellets are bad because they can't get pellets in the wild, so they've got to have like insects and meat and eggs and all this stuff. Somebody comes in and tries to tell you that, what's going through your mind, and what do you tell them?
Well, I tell them pretty much that it's been proven that gliders are not insectivores. They're not insect eaters. That's maybe a small part of their diet, but not the majority of the diet. And if you look around, you have dog food, cat food, which are pellets, You have horse food, pig food, chicken food. Just about anything you can name is now made into a pellet because it's consistent and it's a good source of nutrition.
Okay, good. I don't think our internet connection is that great, but sir, I'm just going to bear with us and ask the viewers to kind of bear with us in case this guy turns into a Chinese movie where our mouth isn't matching our words or something like that. Because the most important thing here, obviously, is the information. So, Dr. Brutz, let me ask you, what about things like meat and eggs in a diet? Is it okay to put meat and eggs in a diet?
I don't have a problem with it per se, but the problem that people run into is, they think if a little bit's good, more's better. So they start getting too much protein in the diet, which leads to a stinky glider. A healthy glider has no odor. They're very, very clean. But pretty much I can tell the diet when the glider comes in the room. If I can smell it, the diet's way too heavy in protein.
So what happens with a stinky glider if you put them back on a pelleted diet then?
The good news is that stink pretty much goes away as soon as we clear out the system.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, so now what about as far as insects? I mean, I know you said earlier that one of the big myths out there on the internet is that the sugar gliders are insectivores. I mean, that's been proven to be wrong a long time ago. I know that because I'm in the industry, but it's still something that a lot of people cling to, and they think you got to have mealworms and they got to have crickets because they clean their teeth and there's all these nutrients and all this stuff in them. Do you have any analogy that you use to kind of compare, to kind of put it in perspective for people what insects do or don't do for these animals?
Sure. I compare it to somebody eating an ice cream cone. The ice cream is pretty high calories. A mealworm is about 80–90% fat. So it's all fat. And as far as people say the skeleton, as far as that's important to clean the teeth, that's kind of like the ice cream cone itself. It's just not going to happen. My gliders, personal gliders, have never eaten a bug to my knowledge, and I have no dental problems. My client gliders, which I refer to my gliders also, I don't have dental problems with them. If they're on the pellets, that's not a problem.
Interesting. So you're saying pellets are actually good for their teeth. Why would that be?
Well, the pellets that I prefer are what's called cold extruded, which gives them a kind of a rough exterior. And that actually cleans the teeth. Kind of compare it to a dog eating a milk bone. As that dog's biting down, chewing on the milk bone, that helps clean their teeth. The same way with the pellets. The pellets, as they're chewing on them, it's cleaning their teeth.
Now, is cleaning their teeth, extra important to a sugar bear?
Sure. Gliders are marsupials. They're not rodents, so they only get one set of teeth. Rodents grow. Gliders do not, so they only got one set of teeth. So if we got, dental problems, we're going to be losing teeth, and they're not coming back.
Excellent. Okay, so obviously, again, in full disclosure, my company makes glider chow. Sir, just to be clear, I mean, are you paid a dime to endorse any particular food or any kind of garbage like that?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, I just want to get this full disclosure, get it out there and completely unedited, because obviously I'm a huge proponent of a pelleted diet. I've studied this stuff for years. I work with some of the top nutritionists that you also know all around the world. And I mean, there's just, hands down, there's just no comparison to, in my opinion, a homemade diet to a pelleted diet. It's just night and day difference. But I think, is there any way, for example, now, especially because when I first started this, there were only a couple different types of pellets out there. Now there's like 15 or 20 at least. And how, for somebody who's just new to this, now again, this is your field of expertise. For somebody who's new, how would you tell? Is there such thing as a good pellet or a bad pellet?
Absolutely good or bad pellets. Kind of the things I look for is, number one, is their nutritional data to back up what they're saying. The other thing first thing I look for is if they're bashing everybody else out there. then that's just a big turnoff for me. That's a red flag. It's like, if they have to spend their time bashing everybody else, then they've got something to hide.
Okay.
But I
help.
know.
Why wouldn't we just make a good sugar glider pellet? I mean, what are the things that people are doing in this industry that you've seen or suspect that maybe not be completely honest?
Well, some of these companies that have, make 10 or 12 different diets, what they've done is recombined different foods, like taking some rabbit pellets and mix it with insectivore diet, even cat food, mix all this stuff together. One of the things I look for when I look at diets, and pretty much I've tried to look at every diet that's on the market. I get a sample of it and look at it and kind of evaluate it. When I see a diet that's just all different shapes and sizes and colors, that concerns me, because gliders, are pretty particular. If they start eating just one part of that diet, they're not getting a complete diet. Even if it was a good diet to begin with, they're not getting a balanced diet. They're getting all of whatever they like to eat.
Okay. I know, in the pet food industry, I know there's a lot of words thrown around out there like complete and premium and wholesale and balanced and stuff like that. As a veterinarian, I don't want people taking my word for this. Do words like that actually mean anything out there in the pet food industry?
Absolutely not. That's all marketing. New and improved, complete, balanced, natural. Those have no real definitions.
Okay, so what you really look for, just so I'm clear, is what you're looking for in a diet is you're looking for the science behind the diet that proves the results. Is that correct?
That's what I look for. I want the proof in the pudding. I want to see what they're talking about. I don't want to just hear their claims that they love it and it's good for them and stuff like that. I want to know how they're basing that, how they're coming up with their diet.
Okay. What about companies that make foods for all different kinds of animals? Is that a red flag to you or not? Or does that mean more knowledge for some reason than the rest?
Sure. As I mentioned before, that kind of concerns me, because that leads to just recombining or repackaging other foods.
Why would a company do that, though? Why would they mix up like rabbit food and cat food and all kinds of other stuff?
Well, unfortunately, that's money. That's profit. The cheaper they can do it, the more money they make. So, and unfortunately, that's the way it is a lot of times.
Okay. Well, I think we've kind of covered, what viewers should watch for as far as red flags. So let me ask you this: is there what in your opinion is there an ideal formula per se for how to feed a sugar bear properly?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, I try and keep things as simple as possible. I tell all my clients, and I make no recommendation that I don't do with my own gliders. My recommendation is 75% pellets, 20% fruits and vegetables, and 5% treats.
Okay. Do you use multivitamins in there at all? Anything like that ever?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I left that out. Absolutely. I don't like liquid vitamins or liquid or powder that goes in the water. I think they break down too fast. I use a powdered vitamin that once again is specific for sugar gliders that I sprinkle over the fruits or vegetables. I only do that a couple times a week. I think the pellets themselves are a complete diet, but the powdered vitamin is just kind of a little bit insurance.
Gotcha. Like if they're picky or something like that and only eat certain things, right?
Correct.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Let's drill down. I want to give people some really good, useful information here. And, sir, so can you, are there what particular fruits and vegetables, any particular type of pellets, any particular type of vitamins, can you be specific? And again, knowing that, I'm not paying you a dime, you're not endorsing anything, and what, in your opinion, if somebody walked into your clinic, what would you tell them? What would you specifically recommend for them?
Well, the two pellets that I found that I prefer the best, and as I said, I've done different trials and stuff, and done taste testing, if you would want to call it that. that far and away the Nutramax and Glider Chow are the two that I think are the best out there. And sorry, I like the Nutramax. I use that. That's what I feed my gliders.
Ouch! Oh, sir, I appreciate your honesty. What type of fruits and vegetables?
The fruits and vegetables are basically an eighth of your average size apple, an eighth of that apple per day per glider, or about the equivalent going weight wise. Peaches, clementines. I'll use, if I'm going away for the weekend, I'll put a big chunk of sweet potato in there. I'll put in peas and carrots. What I do a lot of times is buy the frozen chopped mixed vegetables and just take out a little bit and put it in the dish. They're already chopped up, so I don't have to chop anything up. And then I sprinkle my vitamin powder over either the fruits or vegetables a couple times a week.
Okay, and the vitamin powder, sir, are there any particular types that you recommend?
Vitamax and the Glidamins.
Okay, all right. And what about, I think, let me move my notes here, make sure I'm not missing anything. I'd really like to see if I could get you to come back and do a whole thing just on treats, because I know that's a huge topic, controversial topic with these things. But I noticed in one of the books I was reading, you compared, regarding treats and sweets, you were comparing sugar gliders to human children. Can you kind of elaborate on that for the people who are watching?
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite analogies. I say, if you take a plate of brownies and a plate of broccoli, and you put it down in front of a table full of kids, they're going to eat the brownies all day long. They're never going to touch the broccolis. And sugar gliders are the same way. I always like to say every tooth in their mouth is a sweet tooth. They will go after sweet foods and fatty foods. So something that's real important people got to remember is you can't feed them what they like. You have to feed them what they need. There's a big difference.
Okay, so kind of like little kids then. If you let a little kid eat pizza and cake and ice cream all day, they would, but obviously that's not good for them.
No, not in the long run. That would not be a healthy diet.
Okay. All right, sir. Well, let's do this. I know your time is valuable, so if I wrap it up and give you let's say, for example, somebody out there right now is maybe suspecting that they don't have their sugar bear on the best possible diet. Okay. What would you, as a veterinarian, tell them? Do they just switch right away? Is there a formula for how to transition it, or do they stick with the diet they've got?
That's a very good question. Thank you. A lot of the problems I see is from people that are doing just what you said. They get a glider that's been on one type of diet, and for whatever reason, they change the diet, and boy, we got lots of problems. What I recommend is, in order to change a diet, it takes a while. It's not an overnight process. It actually takes about a month. You go the first week, you do 75% old food, 25% new food. Do that for a week. Then for the next 2 weeks, you do half and half. Then the next week is 75% new food, 25% old food. Then you switch to 100% of the new diet. So it takes about a month to change, especially in young animals. That's a very critical time.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you, sir. I mean, personally, because I work with so many of these animals every year, that's one of the most tragic things I see. Is people, the animals on a decent diet, or at least a diet that it's used to, especially a baby, and they go on the internet, see some kind of crazy thing, or somebody in some chat room tells them, oh, it's a terrible diet, and tries to terrorize them into thinking that their animal's going to die. And so they immediately switch the diet, which in reality is what ends up killing the animal. And when I see that, it makes my blood boil. Because good diet or bad diet doesn't, if you're not on the diet that you don't think you should, in my opinion, that transitioning is the most important part to whatever diet you feel is best for your animal. And so, sir, that formula is very, very important, and thank you for giving that to our viewers. Again, I know your time is very valuable, so if you could just leave these viewers with maybe 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you would give them in the area of nutrition, what would they be? One or two simple words of wisdom.
Keep it simple. Really pay attention who you're getting advice from. Don't confuse what they like with what's good for them.
Okay. All right. Well, sir, again, to me, one of the best things about these animals is that the best diets are almost always the most simple and the least expensive. And, I get a kick out of when people say, oh, feeding a sugar glider is really expensive and really complicated. What do you say to people like that?
It's very simple. My gliders, I leave the pellets in their cage 24/7. I never let the dish run dry. And every evening when I'm playing with them, that's when they get their fruits and vegetables and their treats.
Great. Well, sir, I really would like to try to see if I can get you to come back and do some more brief interviews like this for us. I know for the viewers watching, please send in your questions. I'd like to try to bundle them together and get Dr. Brust to address all those questions specifically for you. And then, lastly, if you ever want to go to a fantastic resource to get really unbiased, veterinary-approved advice on not just diet, but any area of caring for these animals, I cannot recommend the Association of Sugar Glider Veterinarians website strongly enough. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Dr. Brust. It's www.asgv.org. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, www.asgv.org. When you go there, I know they have, 20, 25 videos that are all free that walk you through every aspect of how to care for these animals. And, sir, I personally, dealing with tens of thousands of these babies a year, I can tell you I feel it's probably one of the most, if not the most valuable resource for owners out there. And sir, I want to again commend you and the 1,700 other vets that are part of the ASGV worldwide and the wonderful work that you're doing. And sir, I hope I can get you to come back and do some more interviews. And again, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and it's really evolved. It's far more than I ever thought it would turn into, and I would love to sit down and visit with you some more.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. Take care.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.